You are listening to HOA nuisance files. This is how a closed file reopened. Do not move. You are in violation right now. Karen yelled that my file was being transferred to collections because I kept asking for the audit trail. She stood in the parking lot outside the Eagle Ridge Association clubhouse, waving a laminated policy sheet like it was a warrant. Her face red and her voice loud enough that 3 neighbors stopped on the sidewalk to watch. I had one hand on my truck door and the other holding my phone, recording everything. Because I knew this was not about parking anymore. My name is Jake. I am an electric utility lineman on emergency callouts in Denver, Colorado. And I had just finished a 16-hour shift restoring power after a substation fire when Kathleen Phillips cornered me in the lot. She is the HOA vice president. She wears a gray cardigan even in July. And she carries a handheld radio like she runs dispatch for the entire neighborhood. 2 weeks ago, she slapped a notice on my truck windshield claiming I violated the overnight guest parking rule. But I had parked in my own assigned spot, number 47. Same spot I used every day for the past 3 years. When I asked for proof, she told me the camera footage was unavailable. When I asked for the board minutes that showed the rule, she told me the minutes were not public. When I asked for the accounting ledger that showed where my fine money went, she told me my file was being transferred to collections, and I had 72 hours to pay $350, or they would tow my truck and put a lien on my condo. That was 10 minutes ago. Now she was back, standing between me and my front door, holding a tablet away from the camera angle like she was reading a legal document. But I could see her screen was just the HOA portal homepage. She had a sun hat on, blue, even though the sky was overcast and the storm was rolling in fast. Behind her, a security guard hovered near the clubhouse door, watching us but not intervening. A tow truck idled at the corner of the lot, engine running, yellow lights flashing, waiting for her signal. I decide what counts as compliant. Not you, she said, her voice sharp and loud. You parked in the guest lot last Tuesday at 11 p.m. The camera confirms it, and you did not register the vehicle with the office. That is a clear violation of Section 9-3, and the fine stands. If you do not pay by 5 p.m. today, the tow company has authorization to remove your vehicle from the property. I did not park in the guest lot, I said, keeping my voice level. I parked in my assigned spot, number 47, same as always. I have dash cam footage that shows the spot number on the curb. I can pull it up right now. Your camera does not matter. My minutes are the truth, she snapped. The board reviewed your case at the last meeting and voted to proceed with collections. If you have an issue with the process, you can file an appeal, but the deadline for appeals was last Friday, so you are out of time. I felt my jaw tighten. I had not received any notice about an appeal deadline. I had not received any notice about a board meeting. The only thing I got was the sticker on my windshield and a certified letter 2 days later that said I owed the fine plus a $50 administrative fee. The letter had no signature, no board vote details, no meeting date, nothing. Just a deadline and a threat. I need to see the minutes from that meeting, I said. I need to see the board vote. I need to see the rule you are citing and the camera footage you claim shows my truck in the wrong spot. I am not paying a fine for something I did not do, and I am not letting you tow my truck without proof. Her expression shifted, something cold and pleased. You are in violation right now, she said again, louder this time, turning toward the security guard and the tow driver like she was performing. This resident is refusing to comply with board enforcement, he is obstructing HOA business, and he is making threats. I want it noted in the record. The security guard shifted his weight but did not move. The tow driver leaned against his truck, arms crossed, watching. A neighbor walked past with a dog, slowed down, then kept going. I could feel the pressure building in my chest, not panic, but the same tight focus I used on a high-voltage call-out when one wrong move could kill someone. I had to stay calm. I had to document everything. I had to figure out what she was really doing, because this was not about parking. I am not refusing to comply, I said, still recording. I am asking for the evidence. That is my right under Colorado law and under the HOA bylaws. If you have proof I violated the rule, show me. If you do not have proof, then you are trying to collect a fine that does not exist, and that is fraud. Her face went from red to white. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the coffee on her breath, and lowered her voice to something that was almost a hiss. You do not get to call me a fraud, she said. You do not get to stand here and accuse the board of misconduct just because you do not like the rules. I have been on this board for 6 years. I have handled hundreds of violations, and I know the law better than you ever will. If you keep pushing this, I will make sure every single compliance issue in your file gets escalated. Trash cans out early, holiday lights up too long, unapproved doormat, every little thing. Do you understand me? I understood. I understood that she was scared. I understood that she was trying to intimidate me into backing down before I found something real. I understood that this was not the first time she had done this, and it was not going to be the last unless someone stopped her. I am going to file a public records request, I said. I am going to get every board meeting minute from the past 3 years, every enforcement log, every fine ledger, and every camera timestamp. If you have been running this scheme on other people, I am going to find out, and I am going to report it to the state. She smiled, cold and sharp. Good luck with that, she said. The management company handles all records requests, and they have a 6-week processing time. By then, your truck will be an impound, your fine will be doubled, and your condo will have a lien on it. But go ahead, file your little request. See how far it gets you. She turned and walked toward the clubhouse, her handheld radio crackling with static as she lifted it to her mouth. Unit 2. This is base, she said into the radio like she was coordinating a military operation. Subject is non-compliant. Proceed with tow authorization. I repeat. Proceed with tow. The tow driver pushed off his truck and started walking toward my vehicle. I stepped in front of him, phone still recording. I need to see the authorization paperwork, I said. I need to see the board vote and the violation notice with a signature. He stopped, glanced at Kathleen, then back at me. Look, man, I just do what the HOA tells me, he said. If she says tow it, I tow it. If you have a problem, take it up with them. I do have a problem, I said. She is claiming a violation that never happened, and she is refusing to show me proof. If you tow my truck without a signed authorization and a valid violation, I will file a complaint with the city and I will sue the tow company for unlawful taking. Do you want to risk that? He hesitated. Kathleen was walking back now, fast, her cardigan flapping behind her like a cape. What is the delay? She shouted. I gave you the authorization. Do your job. I need to see it in writing, the driver said, not looking at her. I need a signed work order and a copy of the violation notice. That is company policy. Her jaw clenched. Fine, she said. I will print one right now. But he stays right here. No moving the vehicle. No leaving the property. If he tries to leave, I will call the police and report it as theft. She stormed into the clubhouse. The driver went back to his truck. The security guard finally moved, walking over to stand halfway between me and the clubhouse door, like he was trying to be neutral but still watch me. I stood next to my truck, phone in one hand, caution tape looped over my other wrist from a job site earlier that morning, and tried to think. I had 72 hours until the fine deadline. I had no proof except my dashcam footage and my own word. I had no allies except maybe the neighbors who were watching from their windows but not coming outside. I had no leverage except the threat of a public records request that would take 6 weeks and cost me money I did not have. But I did have one thing. I had a memory. 2 years ago, there was a fight in this same parking lot. A guy named Marcus, Unit 18, got hit with a fine for parking in the guest lot overnight. Same violation Kathleen was claiming against me now. He fought it, he went to a board meeting, he demanded proof, and the board told him the camera footage was corrupted and the fine stood. He paid it, $300, and then he moved out 6 months later. At the time, I thought he just gave up. But now I was wondering if he found something and got scared, or if Kathleen found a way to make his life hell until he left. I pulled up the neighborhood Facebook group on my phone and scrolled back 2 years. It took me 5 minutes, but I found the thread. Marcus had posted a long rant about the fine, about the missing camera footage, about the board refusing to show him the meeting minutes, about Kathleen personally delivering the collection notice to his door at 6 a.m. on a Saturday and threatening to call the cops if he did not pay immediately. The thread had 60 comments, mostly people saying they believed him, a few people saying he should just pay the fine and move on, and one comment from a woman named Rachel who said the same thing happened to her in 2019, and she still had the paperwork. I screenshotted the thread and saved it. Then I opened my email and started drafting a public records request to the management company. I kept it simple. I want copies of all board meeting minutes from January 2022 to present, all parking violation notices issued during that time, all camera footage logs, and all accounting records showing fine payments and their distribution. I cited Colorado Revised Statutes Section 3833.3-209, which requires HOAs to make records available to homeowners within 30 days. I attached my homeowner ID and my contact information. I hit send. Kathleen came back out of the clubhouse holding a single sheet of paper. She handed it to the tow driver, who read it, frowned, and then looked at me. "This does not have a board vote on it," he said. "It just says the vehicle is in violation, and you are authorizing the tow. I need the actual violation notice with the date and the rule citation." Kathleen's face went red again. "That is the violation notice," she said. "I issued it, I signed it, and that is all you need. Now do your job or I will call your supervisor and have you removed from the vendor list." The driver shook his head. "I am not risking a lawsuit over this," he said. "If he files a complaint, my company loses the contract with the city. I need a full work order with a board resolution or a signed notice from the property manager. This does not count." He got back in his truck, turned off the lights, and drove away. Kathleen stood in the middle of the parking lot, holding the paper, her mouth open but no sound coming out. The security guard looked away. I got in my truck, started the engine, and drove out of the lot before she could recover. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I had just dodged a tow, but I had not solved the problem. Kathleen was still going to push this, she was still going to escalate, and I still did not have the proof I needed to stop her. I needed to find Marcus. I needed to find Rachel. I needed to figure out what she had been doing for the past 3 years and how many other people she had targeted. I pulled into a gas station 2 blocks away and called my buddy Devin, who worked for the county clerk's office. He picked up on the second ring. "What is up?" he said. "I need a favor," I said. "I need to pull HOA complaint records for Eagle Ridge Association in Denver. Can you search the county database and see if anyone has filed a formal complaint against the board or the management company in the past 3 years?" He paused. "That is public record, but it is going to take me a few hours to pull it all." "What am I looking for?" "Parking violations," I said. "Collection notices. Towing disputes. Anything that mentions a vice president named Kathleen Phillips. And anything that mentions missing camera footage or backdated enforcement." He whistled. Dude, that sounds like fraud. It is, I said. I just need to prove it. Give me until tomorrow morning, he said. I will send you everything I find. I hung up and sat in the truck, engine idling, watching the storm clouds roll in from the west. Rain started hitting the windshield in fat drops, slow at first, then faster. My phone buzzed. It was an email from the management company, automated reply, confirming receipt of my records request and stating that the processing time was 6 weeks and there was a $50 administrative fee. 6 weeks. Kathleen was right. By then, she would have escalated this into something I could not fight. I needed a faster move. I needed someone who had already been through this and lived to tell about it. I opened Facebook again and clicked on Rachel's profile. She had not posted in the neighborhood group in over a year, but her profile was still active. I sent her a message. Hi Rachel, I am a homeowner at Eagle Ridge Ridge and I am dealing with a parking fine that I think is fraudulent. I saw your comment from 2019 about the same issue. Do you still have the paperwork? Can we talk? I did not expect a reply. I figured she had moved on, blocked the whole thing out, maybe even moved out of the neighborhood like Marcus did. But 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. She had replied, yes, I have everything. Meet me at the Starbucks on Colfax in 1 hour. Do not tell anyone from the HOA. I got to the Starbucks early and sat in the back corner with a coffee I did not drink. Rachel walked in 10 minutes later, saw me, and came straight over. She was maybe 40, short brown hair, jeans and a hoodie, carrying a canvas bag that looked heavy. She sat down across from me and did not waste time. You are the guy from Unit 47, she said. I saw your post in the group last week asking about the guest parking rule. Kathleen is targeting you now, right? I nodded. She hit me with a fine 2 weeks ago. No proof, no camera footage, no meeting minutes. She tried to tow my truck this morning and I stopped it, but she is going to escalate. I need to know what she did to you and how you fought it. Rachel opened the canvas bag and pulled out a thick binder, the kind with metal rings and tab dividers. She flipped it open to the first section and slid it across the table. This is everything, she said. Violation notices, certified letters, emails, meeting minutes, bylaws, camera logs, payment receipts, and a timeline I built myself. Kathleen hit me with a parking fine in August 2019, same story as yours. She claimed I parked in the guest lot overnight. No camera footage, no proof, just her word. I paid it because I did not know any better. Then she hit me again 3 months later for the same thing. Then again 2 months after that. By the end of 2020, I had paid $900 in fines for violations that never happened. I stared at the binder. How did you stop her? I did not, Rachel said. I moved. I sold my condo in early 2021 and got out. But before I left, I filed a complaint with the Colorado Division of Real Estate, and I sent a copy of this binder to the State Attorney General's office. They opened an investigation, but it got dropped because the management company claimed it was a clerical error and they refunded 2 of my fines. Kathleen stayed on the board. Nothing changed. She flipped to a tab labeled Camera Logs and pointed to a highlighted section. Look at this, she said. I requested the camera footage logs for the entire parking lot for the months I got fined. The logs show that the cameras were offline or malfunctioning on every single night I supposedly violated the rule. Every single one. That is not a coincidence. That is someone turning off the cameras so there is no evidence, then issuing fines anyway. I felt my stomach drop. Did you ever figure out who was turning off the cameras? She shook her head. The management company said it was a technical issue. But I found something else. She flipped to another tab labeled Payment Ledger. This is the accounting report I pulled before I moved. It shows every fine payment made to the HOA from 2018 to 2020. Look at the totals. I scanned the page. There were hundreds of entries, most of them $50 to $300, labeled as parking fines, landscaping fines, architectural fines, late fees. The total for 2019 was over $30,000. The total for 2020 was over $40,000. Now look at this, Rachel said, flipping to the next page. This is the budget report from the same years. It shows where the fine money is supposed to go. Reserve fund, maintenance, legal fees. But if you add up the line items, the totals do not match the fine payments. There is a gap. In 2019, the gap is $8,000. In 2020, the gap is $12,000. That money is missing. Where did it go? I asked. I do not know, Rachel said. But I can tell you who controls the fine enforcement process. Kathleen Phillips. She is the vice president, she is the compliance officer, and she is the one who signs off on every violation notice and every collection letter. If money is missing, she knows where it went. I sat back, trying to process it. This was not just selective enforcement or moving goalposts. This was embezzlement. This was fraud, on a scale that could send someone to prison. And if Rachel was right, Kathleen had been doing it for at least 3 years. Maybe longer. I need to borrow this, I said, tapping the binder. I need to take it to a lawyer, and I need to get it in front of the board. If I can prove she is stealing money, the board will have to remove her and open a real investigation. Rachel hesitated. If you use this, she is going to come after you, she said. She is going to make your life hell. She did it to me, she did it to Marcus, and she will do it to you. Are you ready for that? I am already in it, I said. She tried to tow my truck this morning. She threatened to escalate every compliance issue I have ever had. If I do not stop her now, she is going to win, and she is going to keep doing this to other people. Rachel pushed the binder toward me. Take it, she said. But be careful. She has allies on the board. She has the management company scared. And she has enough homeowners convinced that she is just doing her job. You are going to need more than this binder to take her down. You are going to need proof that she is lying right now, today, about your fine. And you are going to need witnesses. I have an idea, I said. But I need to move fast. She is pushing a 72-hour deadline, and I only have 2 days left. Rachel stood up. Good luck, she said. And if you take her down, let me know. I want to see it. She left. I sat there with the binder, flipping through the pages, memorizing the details. The camera logs. The payment ledger. The gap in the accounting. The pattern of fines issued on nights when the cameras were offline. It was all there, a paper trail that connected Kathleen to a multi-year fraud scheme. But Rachel was right. I needed proof that she was lying about my fine specifically, and I needed it fast. I opened my laptop and logged into the HOA portal. I clicked through to the violations section and searched my account. My fine was listed, parking violation, section 9-3, issued on the 14th, due on the 17th, amount $350. The notice said the vehicle was observed in the guest lot at 11:03 p.m., confirmed by security camera footage. But there was no attached image, no timestamp screenshot, no camera ID number, just the claim. I clicked on the Documents tab and searched for board meeting minutes. The most recent meeting was listed as August 10th, 4 days before my fine was issued. I downloaded the PDF and opened it. The minutes were 3 pages long, mostly generic updates about landscaping contracts and pool maintenance. At the bottom of page 2, there was a section labeled Compliance Enforcement. It said, "The board reviewed 3 pending violations and voted to proceed with collection action. No names, no unit numbers, no details. I clicked back to the portal and looked at the timestamp on my violation notice. It was uploaded to the portal on August 14th at 4:47 p.m. The board meeting was on August 10th. That meant Kathleen issued my fine 4 days after the board meeting, but she claimed the board had already voted on it. Either she lied about the board vote, or she backdated the meeting minutes to cover herself. I pulled out my phone and opened my dashcam app. I scrolled back to August 14th and found the footage from that night. The timestamp on the video was 10:52 p.m. The video showed me pulling into the parking lot, driving past the guest spaces, turning into the resident lot, and parking in spot 47. The spot number was clearly visible on the curb, painted in white. I stayed in the truck for 2 minutes, gathering my gear, then got out and walked toward my building. The video ended at 10:58 p.m. Kathleen's notice claimed I was in the guest lot at 11:03 p.m. My dash cam footage showed I was already inside my building by then. She had lied about the time, lied about the location, and lied about the camera confirmation. And she had done it in writing, on an official HOA notice, uploaded to the portal where other homeowners could see it. I had her. I spent the rest of the night building my case. I printed the dash cam footage screenshots with timestamps. I printed the violation notice from the portal with the timestamp showing when Kathleen uploaded it. I printed the board meeting minutes from August 10th, showing no specific mention of my violation. I printed Rachel's camera log pages showing the pattern of offline cameras. I printed the payment ledger pages showing the missing money. I put it all in a folder, labeled it evidence package, and made 3 copies. One for me, one for the board, and one for the police if it came to that. At 6 a.m., I got a text from Devin. He had pulled the county complaint records. There were 7 formal complaints filed against Eagle Ridge Association between 2019 and 2024. 4 were about parking fines with missing camera footage. 2 were about backdated notices. 1 was about missing reserve fund money. All 7 complaints mentioned Kathleen Phillips by name. None of them had been resolved. The county had forwarded them to the Colorado Division of Real Estate, which had opened investigations. But every investigation had been closed after the management company provided explanations or partial refunds. Devin also found something else. He found a civil lawsuit filed in Denver County Court in 2022 by a homeowner named Marcus Chen, Unit 18. The lawsuit alleged fraud, negligent misrepresentation, and unjust enrichment against the HOA and Kathleen Phillips personally. The lawsuit was settled out of court in 2023 for an undisclosed amount, with a confidentiality agreement. Marcus had found something big enough to force a settlement, but Kathleen had made sure he could not talk about it. I forwarded everything to my personal email and saved it to a thumb drive. Then I called the HOA management company and asked to schedule an emergency board hearing. The receptionist told me the next available hearing was in 3 weeks. I told her I was invoking my right under Colorado law to an expedited hearing for enforcement disputes, and that if they did not schedule one within 48 hours, I would file a complaint with the state. She put me on hold for 5 minutes, then came back and said the board would meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. in the clubhouse. I would have 15 minutes to present my case. That gave me 1 day to get my evidence in order, 1 day to figure out how to present it without getting shut down, and 1 day to prepare for whatever Kathleen was going to throw at me. I drove to my condo and tried to sleep, but I could not. My phone kept buzzing with emails from the HOA portal. First, a reminder that my fine was due in 48 hours. Then, a notice that my trash cans had been observed on the curb past the collection window, in violation of Section 6-2, fine $50. Then, a notice that my front door mat was deemed non-compliant with architectural guidelines, in violation of Section 48. Fine $75. Then, a notice that my vehicle registration sticker was expired, in violation of Section 9(1). Fine $100. All 4 notices were issued by Kathleen Phillips. All 4 were uploaded to the portal within the span of 2 hours. All 4 had the same generic language, observed by compliance officer, confirmed by visual inspection, proceed with collection action. None of them had photos, none of them had timestamps, none of them had witness statements. She was burying me. She was stacking fines faster than I could dispute them, trying to overwhelm me with paperwork and deadlines so I would miss the hearing or give up. But she was also making a mistake. Every fake notice she issued was more evidence of fraud. Every lie she put in writing was another piece of the pattern. She was so confident that no one would challenge her that she was not even being careful anymore. I screenshotted every notice and added them to my evidence folder. Then I sent an email to the entire board, copying the management company, with the subject line, "Formal dispute of 4 violations issued by Kathleen Phillips on August 16, 2025. In the email, I listed each violation, stated that I disputed all of them as factually incorrect and procedurally invalid, and requested that they be removed from my account pending the hearing tomorrow. I attached my dash cam footage, my trash collection receipt, a photo of my compliant doormat, and a photo of my current vehicle registration sticker showing it was valid through 2026. I hit send and waited. 10 minutes later, I got a reply from the board president, a guy named Tom who I had met once at a pool party. The email said, "Jake, we have received your dispute. The board will review your evidence at tomorrow's hearing. In the meantime, all fines remain in effect and are due by the original deadlines. Please do not contact board members individually regarding this matter. All communication should go through the management company." Translation: they were not going to do anything, and Kathleen had already told them her version of the story. I needed an ally. I needed someone on the board or in the neighborhood who could vouch for me. Someone who had seen Kathleen's behavior firsthand and was willing to say it out loud. I pulled up the neighborhood Facebook group again and started scrolling through the recent posts. Most of it was the usual stuff: lost pets, garage sale announcements, complaints about the pool hours. But then I saw a post from 3 days ago by a woman named Tina, Unit 32. She had written, "Has anyone else been getting bogus fines from the HOA lately? I got hit with a parking fine last week for a car I do not even own. When I called the office, they told me to take it up with the compliance officer, but she would not return my calls. This is ridiculous." The post had 12 comments, mostly people saying they had similar experiences. One person said they got a fine for a trash can that belonged to their neighbor. Another person said they got a fine for a holiday decoration that was already taken down. Another person said they got a fine for parking in their own driveway because the compliance officer claimed it was blocking the sidewalk, even though the driveway was 3 feet from the sidewalk. I clicked on Tina's profile and sent her a message. "Hi Tina, I saw your post about the parking fine. I am dealing with the same thing. Kathleen Phillips hit me with 4 fake fines in the past 2 weeks and tried to tow my truck yesterday. I have a board hearing tomorrow at 6 p.m. and I am building a case to prove she is committing fraud. If you are willing to come to the meeting and tell your story, it would help a lot. Let me know." She replied 5 minutes later, "I will be there. I am so tired of this." She did the same thing to my neighbor last year and he ended up paying over $1,000 in fines just to make it stop. If you can prove she is lying, I will back you up. I sent similar messages to 3 other people who had commented on Tina's post. 2 of them replied yes. One of them did not reply at all, probably too scared of retaliation. By the end of the day, I had 3 neighbors willing to come to the hearing and testify. I had Rachel's binder with the accounting gap and the camera log pattern. I had my own evidence package with the dashcam footage and the fake notices. I had Devon's county complaint records showing the pattern of fraud. And I had one more thing I had not told anyone about yet. I let the meeting move on, because my move was not a speech, it was a document. 3 months ago, I had filed a Colorado Open Records Act request with the city for all building permits, zoning complaints, and code enforcement actions filed against Eagle Ridge Association since 2018. It was a long shot. Something I did out of curiosity after I heard rumors that the HOA had illegally paved over a drainage easement and got sued by the city. The request took forever to process, but 2 weeks ago, I finally got the response. It was a thick packet of scanned documents, most of it boring permit applications and inspection reports. But buried in the middle was something explosive. In 2020, the city had issued a cease and desist order to the HOA for operating a towing enforcement program without a valid contract or proper authorization under Denver Municipal Code. The order stated that the HOA had been towing vehicles without notifying owners, without providing proof of violations, and without following the required appeal process. The order required the HOA to immediately halt all towing operations, refund all impound fees, and submit a corrective action plan. The order was signed by a deputy city attorney and delivered to the HOA board president and vice president, Kathleen Phillips. The order was dated October 2020. But the HOA had continued towing vehicles. I knew because Marcus got towed in 2022, and Kathleen had tried to tow me just yesterday. That meant the HOA had ignored a city cease and desist order for 5 years and kept operating an illegal towing program. And Kathleen, as vice president and compliance officer, had been the one running it. That was my trump card. I was not going to bring it up at the start of the hearing. I was going to wait until Kathleen tried to defend herself, wait until she doubled down on her lies, and then I was going to hit her with the city order in front of the entire board and every homeowner in the room. And then I was going to send it to the board and homeowners at the same time so nobody could bury it. The next day dragged. I worked a short shift, 4 hours of routine maintenance on a substation north of Denver, and spent the whole time rehearsing what I was going to say at the hearing. I had 15 minutes. I had to cover the fake parking fine, the dash cam proof, the 4 stacked fines from yesterday, the pattern of missing camera footage, the accounting gap, and the city cease and desist order. I had to do it in a way that was clear, calm, and impossible to dismiss. And I had to do it in front of a board that already believed Kathleen's version. At 5:45, I walked into the Eagle Ridge Association clubhouse carrying my evidence folder and Rachel's binder. The meeting room was set up with a long table at the front for the board members and rows of folding chairs for homeowners. About 20 people were already there, including Tina and the 2 other neighbors who had agreed to testify. Kathleen was sitting at the board table, gray cardigan, blue sun hat sitting on the table next to her, stack of pre-filled forms in front of her. She did not look at me. Next to her was Tom, the board president, and 3 other board members I recognized but had never spoken to. A woman from the management company sat at the end of the table with a laptop, probably taking minutes. Tom called the meeting to order at 6 p.m. sharp. He went through the standard agenda items, approve the minutes from last meeting, review the budget report, discuss the pool resurfacing project. Kathleen sat quietly, flipping through her forms, her handheld radio sitting on the table in front of her like a prop. Every few minutes, she would glance at me, then look away. At 6:20, Tom said, "Next item, enforcement hearing for Unit 47, Jake Patterson. Jake, you have 15 minutes to present your case. Please keep it focused on the specific violation you are disputing." I stood up and walked to the front of the room. I put Rachel's binder and my evidence folder on the table in front of the board. I took a breath and started. Thank you for hearing me tonight, I said. I am here to dispute a parking fine issued by Kathleen Phillips on August 14th. The notice claims I parked in the guest lot at 11:03 p.m., in violation of Section 9-3, and that this was confirmed by security camera footage. I am going to show you proof that this claim is false, that the camera footage does not exist, and that this fine is part of a pattern of fraudulent enforcement that has been going on for years. Kathleen's head snapped up. "Excuse me," she said. "I am not going to sit here and be accused of fraud. This is a compliance hearing, not a witch hunt." Tom held up a hand. "Let him finish," he said. "You will have a chance to respond." I opened my evidence folder and pulled out the first set of documents. "This is the violation notice Kathleen uploaded to the HOA portal on August 14th at 4:47 p.m., I said, passing copies to each board member. "It claims my vehicle was in the guest lot at 11:03 p.m. This is my dash cam footage from that night, time-stamped at 10:52 p.m., showing me parking in my assigned spot, number 47. By 10:58 p.m., I was already inside my building. I could not have been in the guest lot at 11:03 p.m. because I was not in my vehicle." I passed out the dashcam screenshots. Tom studied them, frowning. Kathleen leaned forward, her face tight. "That footage could be from any night," she said. "How do we know it is from the 14th? "The timestamp is on the screen," I said, "and the date is embedded in the file metadata. If you want, I can pull up the raw file right now and show you." Tom looked at Kathleen. "Do you have the camera footage you referenced in the notice?" She hesitated. "The cameras were malfunctioning that night," she said. "But I observed the vehicle myself during my evening inspection. I saw it in the guest lot, I noted the time, and I issued the violation the next day." I turned to the board. "She just admitted there is no camera footage," I said. "The notice claims the violation was confirmed by security camera footage, but now she is saying the cameras were not working. That is a lie, and it is not the first time." I opened Rachel's binder to the camera log section and passed it to Tom. "This is documentation from another homeowner who fought the same issue in 2019 and 2020, I said. She requested the camera logs for the parking lot and found that the cameras were offline or malfunctioning on every single night she was accused of violating the parking rule. Every single one. That is not a technical issue. That is someone intentionally turning off the cameras so there is no evidence, then issuing fines anyway." Kathleen stood up, her chair scraping loud against the floor. "This is outrageous," she said. "You are bringing in documents from someone who is not even a homeowner anymore, someone who left the neighborhood years ago, and you are using them to attack my credibility. I have been on this board for 6 years. I have issued hundreds of violations, and every single one of them was legitimate. If people do not like being fined, they should follow the rules." I kept my voice level. "Then explain this," I said. I pulled out the second set of documents, the county complaint records Devin had sent me. These are formal complaints filed with the Colorado Division of Real Estate between 2019 and 2024. 7 complaints, all about parking fines with missing camera footage, backdated notices, and procedural violations. All 7 complaints name you specifically as the compliance officer who issued the fines. All 7 were investigated by the state. And all 7 were quietly closed after the management company provided explanations or refunds. Why would the state investigate you 7 times if all your violations were legitimate? The room went silent. Tom was reading the complaint records, his face getting darker. The other board members were whispering to each other. Kathleen's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles in her neck. "This is a smear campaign," she said. "Those complaints were filed by disgruntled homeowners who did not want to follow the rules. The state found no wrongdoing." "The state found enough wrongdoing to force refunds," I said. "And I found more. I pulled out the payment ledger pages from Rachel's binder and put them on the table. This is the HOA accounting report from 2019 and 2020. It shows over $70,000 in parking fines collected during that time. But when you compare it to the budget report, the totals do not match. There is a $20,000 gap. $20,000 in fine money that was collected but never deposited into the reserve fund or used for maintenance. Where did it go? Kathleen slammed her hand on the table. That is confidential financial information, she shouted. You have no right to access those records, and you have no right to share them in a public meeting. I am calling the management company right now and having you removed for violating homeowner privacy. She reached for her handheld radio. Tom stood up. Kathleen, sit down, he said. Those records are not confidential. Under Colorado law, homeowners have a right to review HOA financial documents. If there is a discrepancy in the accounting, we need to address it, not shut down the conversation. She sat down slowly, her face white now instead of red. I decide what counts as compliant. Not you, she said, her voice quieter but still sharp. I have been enforcing these rules for 6 years, and I have never taken a dime that did not belong to the HOA. If there is a gap in the accounting, it is because the management company made a clerical error, not because I did anything wrong. Then explain why you tried to tow my truck yesterday without a signed work order, I said. Explain why you issued 4 more fake fines against me in the span of 2 hours right after I requested a hearing. Explain why you told the tow driver that I was non-compliant and threatening HOA business when all I did was ask for proof. Tina stood up from the audience. She did the same thing to me, she said. I got a parking fine last week for a car I do not even own. When I called the office, Kathleen told me to pay it or she would send it to collections. I asked for proof and she hung up on me. Another neighbor stood up. She fined me for a trash can that was not mine, he said. I showed her a photo proving it was my neighbor's can, and she told me the photo did not matter because she saw it on my property. I paid the fine because I did not want to deal with her anymore. A third neighbor stood up. She tried to fine me for holiday lights in January, she said. But the lights were not mine. They were on the house next door. When I pointed it out, she told me I should have reported my neighbor instead of arguing with her. Tom looked around the room, then back at Kathleen. How do you respond to this? Kathleen stood up again, grabbing her radio. This is a coordinated attack, she said. He brought these people here to lie about me because he does not want to pay his fine. None of this is relevant to his violation. He parked in the guest lot, I observed it, and the fine stands. If the board votes to waive it, fine. But I am not going to sit here and be accused of stealing money and fabricating evidence. Then let us vote, Tom said. But first, I want to hear the rest of Jake's evidence. Jake, you have 5 minutes left. I pulled out the final document, the city cease and desist order from 2020. This is a public record I obtained from the Denver City Attorney's Office, I said. In October 2020, the city issued a cease and desist order to the HOA for operating a towing enforcement program without proper authorization. The order stated that the HOA had been towing vehicles without notifying owners, without providing proof of violations, and without following the required appeal process. The order required the HOA to immediately halt all towing operations and refund all impound fees. It was delivered to the board president and to Kathleen Phillips as vice president. I passed copies of the order to each board member. Tom read it, then looked up at Kathleen. Did you know about this? She did not answer. Her face was frozen, her mouth slightly open, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The order is from 2020, I continued. But Kathleen tried to tow my truck yesterday. That means the HOA has been operating an illegal towing program for 5 years, in direct violation of a city order. and Kathleen, as compliance officer, has been the one authorizing the tows. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. 10 minutes ago, before I walked into this meeting, I sent this cease and desist order, along with all the evidence I have presented tonight, to every homeowner email address on the HOA portal, I said. I also sent it to the Colorado Division of Real Estate, the Denver City Attorney's Office, and the local news tip line. So even if this board votes to waive my fine and pretend nothing happened, the evidence is already out there. The city is going to investigate. The state is going to investigate. And every homeowner in this neighborhood is going to know what Kathleen has been doing. If you are enjoying this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama and satisfying justice stories. The room erupted. Homeowners were talking over each other, some shouting questions at the board, some pulling out their phones to check their email. Tom was trying to restore order, banging a gavel on the table. The management company woman was typing furiously on her laptop. And Kathleen was still frozen, staring at me like I had just set her house on fire. Tom finally got the room quiet. "Kathleen," he said, his voice hard now. "I am suspending your authority as compliance officer, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. You are not to issue any more fines, you are not to authorize any more tows, and you are not to contact any homeowners about enforcement matters. Do you understand?" She did not answer. She just picked up her radio and her stack of forms and walked out of the room. The door slammed behind her. Tom turned to me. "Jake, the board is going to review all of this evidence and we will issue a formal decision within 72 hours. In the meantime, your fine is suspended, and any other fines issued by Kathleen in the past month are also suspended pending review. If we find evidence of fraud or embezzlement, we will refer it to law enforcement. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." I sat down. My hands were shaking. Tina leaned over from the row behind me and whispered, "You did it. You actually did it." I nodded, but I did not feel like I had won yet. Kathleen was out of the room, but she was not gone. She still had allies, she still had access to HOA records, and she still had her handheld radio and her stack of pre-filled forms. She was going to regroup. She was going to find a way to fight back. And I needed to be ready. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. I walked out of the clubhouse with my evidence folder and Rachel's binder, and I saw Kathleen standing by her car in the parking lot, talking into her radio. She saw me, and for a second, we just stared at each other. Then she got in her car and drove away, tires squealing on the asphalt. I went home and waited. I did not sleep. I kept my phone next to me, refreshing my email every few minutes, waiting for the board's decision or another retaliation move from Kathleen. At 2 a.m., I got an email from Tom. The board had convened an emergency executive session and voted unanimously to suspend Kathleen from all HOA duties pending a forensic audit of the association's financial records. They had also voted to refer the matter to the Denver District Attorney's Office for potential criminal investigation. And they had voted to immediately terminate the HOA's relationship with the towing company that Kathleen had been using. The email ended with this, "Jake, your fine has been waived, and you will receive a written apology from the board within the week. We are also refunding any fees you paid related to this dispute. Thank you for your diligence and for holding us accountable." I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I had been holding for 2 weeks. It was not over, not completely, but it was enough. Kathleen was off the board. The towing program was shut down. The forensic audit was happening. And every homeowner in the neighborhood now knew what she had been doing. The next morning, I got a text from Devin. He had been monitoring the county court database, and a new lawsuit had just been filed. It was a class action by 15 homeowners against the Eagle Ridge Association and Kathleen Phillips personally, alleging fraud, unjust enrichment, and civil conspiracy. The lawsuit demanded refunds for all fines issued by Kathleen over the past 5 years, plus damages and attorney fees. The lead plaintiff was Marcus Chen, the guy from 2022 who had settled his case under a confidentiality agreement. Apparently, the settlement agreement had an exception clause that allowed him to sue again if new evidence of fraud emerged. And my evidence package, which I had sent to every homeowner email address, counted as new evidence. 3 days later, the Denver District Attorney's Office announced they were opening a criminal investigation into the Eagle Ridge HOA for embezzlement and fraud. The announcement included a press release that named Kathleen Phillips as a person of interest and stated that the investigation would focus on missing fine payments and an illegal towing program. The local news picked up the story, and by that afternoon, every TV station in Denver was running clips of the HOA clubhouse and interviewing angry homeowners. A week after that, Kathleen resigned from the HOA board entirely. She did not issue a statement. She just sent an email to the management company saying she was stepping down for personal reasons, and that was it. The board replaced her with a homeowner who had been vocal at the meeting, someone who promised transparency and accountability. 2 weeks after that, the forensic audit was completed. The auditor found that over $40,000 in fine payments had been diverted from the HOA accounts over a 4-year period. The money had been transferred to a separate account controlled by Kathleen, which she had claimed was for legal defense expenses but had actually been used for personal purchases. The auditor recommended that the HOA file a civil lawsuit to recover the funds, and that the findings be forwarded to law enforcement. The board voted unanimously to file the lawsuit. Kathleen was served with the complaint at her home in front of her neighbors on a Saturday morning. I know because one of those neighbors posted a video of it on the Eagle Ridge Facebook group. In the video, Kathleen is standing on her porch in a bathrobe, yelling at the process server, saying this is harassment and she has done nothing wrong. The process server hands her the papers and walks away. She stands there holding them, her face red, her hands shaking, and then the video ends. The criminal investigation took longer. It took 6 months, but eventually, the district attorney's office filed charges. Kathleen was charged with embezzlement, theft, fraud, and abuse of fiduciary duty. The charges carried a combined maximum sentence of 12 years in prison. She pled not guilty and hired a defense attorney, but the evidence was overwhelming. The forensic audit, the county complaints, the city cease and desist order, the testimony from homeowners, and the email trail I had provided all pointed to the same conclusion. She had been running a scheme to generate fake fines, collect the money, and pocket the difference. The trial was scheduled for the following spring, but it never happened. 3 weeks before the trial date, Kathleen accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to 1 count of embezzlement and 1 count of fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation, and ordered her to pay full restitution to the HOA and to every homeowner she had defrauded. The restitution amount was over $60,000. The day the sentence was announced, I got a call from Rachel. She had been following the case from her new home in Colorado Springs, and she wanted to know how it felt to finally win. I told her it felt like closure, but also like it should not have taken this long. She agreed. She told me she was planning to write a letter to the state legislature proposing reforms to HOA enforcement laws, and she asked if I would co-sign it. I said yes. The Eagle Ridge HOA did not fall apart after Kathleen left. It actually got better. The new board implemented a transparency policy that required all enforcement actions to be documented with photos, timestamps, and witness statements. They hired a new management company that had no ties to Kathleen. They installed new security cameras in the parking lot and published the camera log online so homeowners could verify the footage themselves. And they established an appeals process that gave homeowners a real chance to dispute fines before they went to collections. The neighborhood Facebook group became a place where people posted success stories instead of complaints. Tina started a homeowner advocacy committee that met once a month to review enforcement trends and flag potential abuses. The committee had 20 active members, and they worked with the board to rewrite the compliance guidelines so they were clear, fair, and consistently applied. I stayed in my condo. I kept working my shifts as a lineman, and I kept my dash cam running every time I drove into the parking lot. I did not need it anymore, but it felt like a good habit. Every now and then I would see a new homeowner moving in, and I would introduce myself and tell them the story of what happened with Kathleen. Most of them had already heard about it. Some of them told me it was the reason they chose to buy in Eagle Ridge, because they knew the HOA had been cleaned up and held accountable. The funny karma moment came 6 months after Kathleen's sentencing. The board was reviewing old enforcement records as part of the Transparency Initiative, and they found something strange. Kathleen had issued a violation notice to herself in 2021 for a holiday decoration that was left up past the deadline. She had issued the notice, signed it, and then paid the $50 fine, all within the same day. At first, it looked like she was just following the rules. But when the board checked the accounting records, they found that the $50 payment had been transferred to the same separate account she had used for the embezzled funds. She had fined herself, paid herself, and then pocketed the money, all to make her enforcement numbers look consistent. The board flagged it as evidence of intent and forwarded it to the district attorney's office. It did not change her sentence, but it became a running joke in the neighborhood. Kathleen insists on a deadline and the timestamp proves she lied, even when the deadline was for herself. The HOA issued a memo clarifying the parking rule Kathleen had weaponized. The new rule required photo evidence for every violation, a 24-hour notice period before any tow could be authorized, and a mandatory board review for any fine over $100. The memo also included a formal apology to every homeowner who had been fined under the old enforcement process, and an open invitation to request a refund if they believed their fine had been issued in error. Kathleen's bluff got read out loud during a community meeting when the board reviewed the timeline of her scheme. One of the homeowners asked how she had gotten away with it for so long, and Tom, the board president, read a passage from one of her emails where she had written, "Most people will pay a fine, rather than fight it, because fighting it takes time and effort. As long as we keep the fines under $500, they will not hire a lawyer, and we can keep the process moving." The room went silent. Then someone in the back row said, "She literally confessed in writing." And the whole room erupted in laughter and disbelief. The payback vector was a lawyer letter that forced a retraction and a refund. After the forensic audit was completed, the HOA's attorney sent a formal demand letter to Kathleen and her defense attorney. The letter stated that the HOA was seeking full restitution for all diverted funds, plus interest, plus legal fees. It also demanded that Kathleen retract her written statements claiming the violations were legitimate, and issue a formal apology to every homeowner she had fined. Her attorney tried to negotiate, but the evidence was too strong. She signed the retraction and the apology, and the HOA posted both documents on the community portal for everyone to see. The secondary prop, the tablet she had held away from the camera during the first confrontation, became a key piece of evidence. During the investigation, the district attorney's office subpoenaed her personal devices, and they found the tablet. The forensic analysis showed that she had used it to access the HOA portal during enforcement actions, but she had also used it to log into the separate bank account where she was diverting the fine money. The login timestamps matched the dates she had issued violations, proving that she was checking her personal account balance while enforcing HOA rules. The prosecution used the tablet login data as proof of intent, and it became one of the key exhibits at her plea hearing. The lens flavor I had used in my own photography of the evidence, tight crop with shallow depth of field, became part of the community's documentation standard. After the case, the new HOA board recommended that all homeowners photograph any enforcement notices they received using a similar method. Tight focus on the document itself with enough background context to prove location and time. It made disputes easier to resolve because the photos could not be dismissed as generic stock images. The witness type, the security guard who had hovered near the clubhouse door during the first confrontation, turned out to be crucial. During the investigation, the district attorney's office interviewed him, and he testified that Kathleen had instructed him multiple times to not intervene when she was confronting homeowners, even if the situation escalated. He also testified that she had asked him to turn off the parking lot cameras on specific nights, claiming it was for maintenance, but he had refused. His testimony corroborated the camera log evidence and proved that Kathleen had actively tried to eliminate surveillance during her enforcement actions. The narrator accessory, the roll of caution tape looped over my wrist, became a symbol in the neighborhood. After the story got out, other homeowners started wearing yellow wristbands or carrying yellow ribbons as a sign of solidarity and a reminder to question authority when something felt wrong. It was not organized, just something that happened organically, but it stuck. The Karen accessory, her stack of pre-filled forms, was revealed during the investigation to be a batch of blank violation notices she had printed in advance. The forms had her signature already on them, but the violation details were blank. She would fill them in on the spot, depending on what she wanted to target. The district attorney's office found the blank forms in her car during a search, and it became another piece of evidence showing premeditation and intent to fabricate violations. The weather flavor, the cloudy sky that threatened a storm right as the tow truck arrived, turned out to be a small blessing. The storm hit about an hour after the tow driver left, and it knocked out power to the clubhouse security cameras for the rest of the night. If Kathleen had delayed the confrontation by even an hour, there would have been no camera footage of the parking lot at all, and I would have had a much harder time proving my case. The conflict object, the printed minutes packet I had held in the foreground during the hearing, became the smoking gun. The board had published the minutes from the August 10th meeting on the portal, but I had printed them before Kathleen could edit them. During the investigation, the district attorney's office compared my printed copy to the version currently on the portal, and found that Kathleen had edited the minutes after I filed my dispute. She had added a paragraph claiming the board had voted to proceed with enforcement action against Unit 47, but the paragraph had not existed in the original version. The metadata on the portal file showed that she had edited it on August 16th, the same day I requested the hearing. That was evidence of tampering, and it added another charge to her case. The neighborhood type, a community where the board claimed the rules were clear but would not show the page, became a rallying point for HOA reform across Colorado. After the case went public, other neighborhoods started reviewing their own enforcement processes and demanding transparency. The state legislature introduced a bill requiring all Colorado HOAs to publish their rules, meeting minutes, and financial reports online in a publicly accessible format. The bill passed, and it was nicknamed the Eagle Ridge Accountability Act. The cold case aspect of the investigation, the past incident that never made sense, turned out to be even bigger than I thought. After Kathleen's arrest, the district attorney's office reopened several old cases involving HOA fines and embezzlement. They found evidence that Kathleen had been running the same scheme since at least 2017, possibly earlier. The total amount of diverted funds was eventually calculated at over $100,000, spread across multiple HOA accounts and personal accounts. The restitution order was amended to reflect the full amount, and Kathleen's prison sentence was extended to 6 years. Marcus Chen, the homeowner who had sued in 2022 and settled under a confidentiality agreement, eventually went public with his story. He wrote an op-ed for the Denver Post detailing how Kathleen had targeted him with fake fines, backdated notices, and threats of foreclosure until he was forced to settle just to protect his credit and his home. He explained that the confidentiality agreement had a clause allowing him to speak if new evidence emerged, and my public records release had triggered that clause. His op-ed went viral, and it led to a wave of similar stories from other HOA victims across the state. The side complication, my ally being terrified of retaliation and refusing to be seen on camera at first, was something I had to navigate carefully. Tina and the other homeowners who testified at the hearing had all been worried about retaliation, and I had to convince them that the evidence was strong enough to protect them. I did that by showing them the county complaint records and the forensic audit summary before the hearing, so they knew I was not going in blind. It worked, and after the hearing, they became the core of the homeowner advocacy committee that continues to keep the HOA accountable. The trigger for reopening the cold case, my ally showing me a screenshot of Karen bragging about being able to make fines stick, was something I had forgotten to mention earlier. Tina had sent me a screenshot from a private HOA board chat where Kathleen had written, "As long as we keep the fines low and the process confusing, most people will just pay. If someone pushes back, we escalate and threaten collections. It works every time." The screenshot was leaked by a former board member who had resigned in protest, and Tina forwarded it to me the day before the hearing. I included it in my evidence package, and it became one of the key exhibits showing intent and pattern. The HOA method, placing stickers or notices on my vehicle to provoke a reaction, was something Kathleen had done to multiple homeowners. The investigation found that she had a roll of bright red violation stickers in her car, and she would place them on windshields in high-traffic areas to maximize embarrassment. The stickers were not official HOA notices. They were just generic warning labels she had ordered online. But she used them as a psychological tactic to pressure people into paying fines before they could dispute them. The stakes, being on a strict medication schedule and knowing that a tow or court day would throw everything off, was something I had mentioned to Rachel during our first meeting. She had used that information to help me build the timeline for the hearing, because she knew that Kathleen would try to push the deadline to force me into a corner. By framing the dispute as a time-sensitive issue, I was able to get the expedited hearing and avoid the worst-case scenario. The evidence type, a third-party report that flagged the accounting or enforcement irregularities, was the forensic audit commissioned by the board. The auditor was an independent CPA with no ties to the HOA or the management company, and her report was brutal. She found missing payments, backdated entries, duplicate fines, and a pattern of transfers to unauthorized accounts. The report was over 50 pages long, and it became the foundation for both the civil lawsuit and the criminal case. The evidence reveal, sending the evidence to the board and homeowners at the same time so it could not disappear, was the move that sealed Kathleen's fate. By making the evidence public before the board could bury it, I forced them to act. If I had only sent it to the board, they might have tried to handle it quietly or negotiate a settlement that protected Kathleen. But by sending it to every homeowner, I made sure the story could not be contained. The signature detail, the handheld radio Kathleen used to summon compliance like she owned them, became a punchline in the neighborhood. After she resigned, someone found her radio in the clubhouse lost and found, and they donated it to a local theater company that was doing a production of a dystopian play. The radio became a prop for the villain character, and the theater company put a plaque on it that said, "Donated by the Eagle Ridge HOA. Used for intimidation, 2019 to 2025. The story made the local news, and it became another viral moment. The ally, a former management company employee who recognized the scheme, was someone I did not meet until after the case went public. She reached out to me through the neighborhood Facebook group and told me she had worked for the management company in 2020 and had quit because Kathleen was pressuring her to backdate violation notices and alter accounting records. She had reported it to her supervisor at the time, but nothing had been done. After she saw my evidence package, She contacted the district attorney's office and provided testimony that corroborated the forensic audit findings. Her testimony was crucial because it showed that the scheme was not just Kathleen acting alone, but that she had tried to involve others in the fraud. The twist, that management had been backdating notices to manufacture late fees, was the revelation that changed everything. The forensic audit found that dozens of notices had been issued with timestamps that did not match the actual mailing dates. The notices would be dated as sent on the 1st of the month, but the postal timestamps showed they had not been mailed until the 10th or 15th. By the time homeowners received the notices, the deadlines had already passed, so they were automatically hit with late fees. The scheme generated thousands of dollars in extra revenue, and Kathleen had been the one directing it. The showdown location, a police cruiser hood where the report got written while Karen kept talking, was the final confrontation. 3 weeks after the hearing, I was at the grocery store when I saw Kathleen in the parking lot, still wearing her gray cardigan, still carrying her stack of forms. She saw me and started walking over, yelling something about how I had ruined her life and destroyed the HOA. I pulled out my phone and started recording. She got louder, accusing me of lying and fabricating evidence. A deputy sheriff who was parked nearby got out of his cruiser and walked over. He told Kathleen to calm down. She turned on him, yelling that I was harassing her and that he should arrest me. The deputy asked for both our IDs, then asked me to explain what was going on. I showed him the case summary and the restraining order the HOA had filed against Kathleen prohibiting her from contacting homeowners. He read it, then told Kathleen she was in violation of the order and that he was going to write a report. She stood there, sputtering, while he used the hood of his cruiser as a desk and filled out the incident report. I recorded the whole thing. The report was forwarded to the district attorney's office, and it became evidence of her continued harassment even after being removed from the board. The set piece 1, a portal screenshot reveal scene where I showed the upload confirmation and Karen pretended it was fake, happened during the hearing. When I presented the violation notice timestamp showing Kathleen had uploaded it on August 14th at 4:47 p.m., she tried to claim the portal had a glitch and the timestamp was wrong. I pulled up the portal on my laptop, logged in, and showed the board the upload history page with all her recent violations, listed by timestamp. The page showed that she had uploaded my violation at 4:47 p.m., then uploaded the 4 additional fines against me at 6:14 p.m., 6:22 p.m., 6:31 p.m., and 6:40 p.m., all on August 16th, the day I requested the hearing. The timestamps proved she had stacked the fines in retaliation, and the board could see it in real time. She went silent after that. The set piece 2, a mailbox cluster evidence handoff scene where my ally gave me the missing page in front of witnesses, happened 2 days after the hearing. Tina had managed to get a copy of the original August 10th board meeting minutes before Kathleen edited them. She met me at the neighborhood mailbox cluster, a central kiosk where all the residents picked up their mail, and she handed me a sealed envelope containing the printout. There were 3 other neighbors standing nearby checking their mail, and Tina made sure they saw the handoff. She said loud enough for them to hear, "This is the original version," before she changed it. "If anyone asks, you saw me give it to him." The neighbors nodded, and 2 of them later provided witness statements confirming they had seen the exchange. The original minutes became key evidence of tampering. The outcome, a judge issuing an order that stopped retaliation and towing threats immediately and forced a correction, came during Kathleen's plea hearing. As part of her plea deal, the judge issued a permanent injunction prohibiting her from any involvement with HOA governance or enforcement in Colorado. The order also required the Eagle Ridge HOA to issue a formal retraction of every violation notice she had issued over the past 5 years, and to post a public apology on the community portal. The judge ordered the HOA to refund any fines that could not be substantiated with photo evidence or board votes, and to implement a new enforcement policy that included mandatory photo documentation, 24-hour notice periods, and a board review process. The order was enforceable by contempt of court, which meant Kathleen could go to jail if she violated it. The funny karma beat, where Karen insisted on a deadline and the timestamp proved she lied, happened when the district attorney's office reviewed the timeline of my case. Kathleen had sent me a certified letter demanding payment by 5 p.m. on August 17th. But the Postal Service tracking showed the letter was not mailed until August 15th, which meant it could not have reached me by the deadline she set. The deadline itself was manufactured, and the timestamp on the tracking receipt proved it. The prosecution used it as evidence of intent to manufacture late fees, and it became one of the most damaging pieces of evidence against her. The HOA consequence, that the HOA issued a memo clarifying the rule Karen weaponized, was something the new board did proactively. They rewrote Section 9-3 of the parking rules to explicitly state that homeowners could park in their assigned spots overnight without restriction, that guest parking required registration but not pre-approval, and that all violations required photo evidence with a timestamp. The memo also clarified that the compliance officer had no authority to issue fines without board approval, and that all fines over $50 required a formal vote. The memo was posted on the portal, emailed to every homeowner, and included in the welcome packet for new residents. The Karen consequence, that her bluff got read out loud and the room reacted, happened during the community meeting when the board reviewed her enforcement record. One of the homeowners asked if Kathleen had ever issued a fine against herself, and Tom read the record of the 2021 holiday decoration fine she had issued to herself, and then paid into her own account. The room erupted in laughter and disbelief. Someone shouted, "She fined herself to cook the books," and someone else shouted, "That is the most Karen thing I have ever heard." The moment became a meme in the neighborhood Facebook group, and it was still being referenced months later. The payback vector, the lawyer letter that forced a retraction and a refund, was delivered 3 weeks after the plea deal. The HOA's attorney sent Kathleen a formal demand letter requiring her to sign the retraction, issue the apology, and begin restitution payments within 30 days. Her attorney tried to negotiate a delayed payment plan, but the HOA rejected it. Kathleen signed the documents, and the HOA posted them on the portal with a note explaining that the retractions were part of a court-ordered resolution. Every homeowner who had been fined by Kathleen received a personal email with a link to the documents and an invitation to request a refund. The final loose end, the question of whether the management company would face consequences, was resolved when the HOA board voted to terminate the contract. The management company had enabled Kathleen's scheme by allowing her to backdate notices, alter records, and operate without proper board oversight. The new board hired a different management company with a stronger reputation for transparency and compliance, and they required the new company to implement quarterly audits and monthly enforcement reports that were published on the portal for all homeowners to review. The neighborhood recovered. The Homeowner Advocacy Committee continued to meet monthly, and they worked with the board to review every enforcement action before fines were issued. The committee flagged several minor issues in the first few months, but nothing rose to the level of fraud or abuse. The transparency policy held, and homeowners started trusting the HOA again. I stayed active in the community. I attended board meetings, I served on the advocacy committee, and I continued to help new homeowners understand their rights and how to navigate the enforcement process. I also stayed in touch with Rachel, who eventually moved back to Denver and bought a condo in a different neighborhood. She told me the reforms we had pushed for at Eagle Ridge were being replicated across the state, and that other HOAs were adopting similar transparency policies to avoid the same kind of scandal. The criminal case against Kathleen moved slowly through the system, but it eventually reached a conclusion. She served her sentence, paid her restitution, and was released on probation. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she had moved out of state and was working a low-level administrative job somewhere in Arizona. I did not follow up. I did not need to. The case was over, the neighborhood was better, and I had done what I set out to do. The story made the rounds in the local HOA community, and I was invited to speak at a few neighborhood association meetings about what had happened and how to prevent similar abuses. I kept the talks short and focused on the basics. Document everything. Demand transparency. Do not be afraid to ask questions, and do not let anyone intimidate you into silence. Most of the audiences were receptive, but a few people told me afterward that they had similar issues in their own neighborhoods and did not know how to fight back. I gave them copies of my evidence template and Rachel's contact information, and I told them the same thing Rachel had told me. Be careful, be persistent, and do not back down. The media coverage eventually faded, but the reforms stuck. The Eagle Ridge Accountability Act passed the state legislature and was signed into law. HOAs across Colorado were required to publish their rules, minutes, and financial reports online, and homeowners were given stronger appeal rights and shorter response times for records requests. The law also established penalties for HOAs that retaliated against homeowners who filed complaints or requested records. It was not perfect, but it was a start. I kept my job as a lineman, kept my condo, and kept my dash cam running. Every now and then, I would see a new violation notice on someone's windshield, and I would walk over and introduce myself. I would ask if they knew their rights, if they had documentation, if they needed help disputing the fine. Most of the time, they did not need help. The new enforcement process was clear, fair, and backed up with photo evidence. But every now and then, someone would say they were scared to fight back, and I would tell them the story of what happened with Kathleen. I would tell them that transparency works, that accountability works, and that one person standing up can change the whole system. The roll of caution tape I had looped over my wrist that first day became something I kept as a reminder. I hung it on a hook in my garage, next to my work gear and my dash cam. Every time I saw it, I remembered the moment Kathleen tried to tow my truck, the moment the tow driver walked away, the moment I realized I had the leverage I needed to fight back. It was not about the tape itself, it was about the decision to document everything. To stay calm, to ask questions, and to refuse to back down when someone tried to intimidate me. The neighborhood moved on, but the lessons stuck. The new board, the advocacy committee, the transparency policy, the monthly audits, all of it worked because people stayed engaged and held the HOA accountable. It was not perfect, but it was better. And that was enough. The final update came 2 years after Kathleen's sentencing. The HOA completed a full reserve fund audit and discovered that the missing money was even larger than originally estimated. The total amount of diverted funds was over $120,000, spanning from 2017 to 2025. The HOA filed an amended restitution claim, and Kathleen's probation was extended to ensure full repayment. The restitution payments were distributed to every homeowner who had been fined during that period, and the HOA used the recovered funds to replenish the reserve account and fund major repairs that had been deferred for years. The clubhouse, the parking lot, the pool, the landscaping, all of it got upgraded. The neighborhood looked better, felt better, and the sense of community was stronger than it had been in years. People started attending board meetings again, not because they were angry, but because they wanted to stay informed. The advocacy committee grew to over 50 members, and they started hosting quarterly forums where homeowners could ask questions, review enforcement trends, and suggest policy improvements. I stayed involved, but I also stepped back. I had done what I needed to do, and the system was working. Other people were taking the lead now. People like Tina and the new board members who had stepped up after Kathleen left. They did not need me to keep fighting, they just needed me to show up and support the process. The last time I saw Kathleen was in a courthouse hallway during one of her probation check-ins. She did not see me, or if she did not acknowledge it. She looked smaller, quieter, like someone who had finally run out of things to yell about. I did not say anything. I just watched her walk past, and then I left. The story ended the way it should have ended, with accountability, transparency, and a system that worked. It was not revenge, it was justice. And it was enough. The advocacy work continued beyond Eagle Ridge Ridge. Rachel and I co-authored the reform proposal we had talked about, and we submitted it to the state legislature. The proposal included mandatory financial audits for all HOAs, stricter penalties for retaliation, and a requirement that all enforcement actions be documented with time-stamped photos and board votes. The proposal was introduced as a bill, and it passed the state Senate by a wide margin. It was signed into law 2 years after Kathleen's sentencing, and it became known as the Homeowner Protection Act of 2027. The law had teeth. HOAs that violated the transparency requirements faced fines of up to $10,000 per violation. Board members who retaliated against homeowners faced personal liability and potential criminal charges. And homeowners who were victims of fraudulent enforcement were given the right to sue for triple damages plus attorney fees. The law changed the game, and it made HOAs think twice before weaponizing rules against their own residents. Other states started paying attention. Colorado became a model for HOA reform, and legislators in Arizona, Nevada, and Texas introduced similar bills in their own state legislatures. Rachel and I were invited to testify at several hearings, and we shared the story of what happened at Eagle Ridge Ridge. The testimony was effective, and several states passed their own versions of the Homeowner Protection Act within the next few years. The work was not glamorous, and it did not make headlines, but it mattered. Every new law, every new transparency policy, every new advocacy committee meant fewer people would have to go through what I went through. Fewer people would have to fight fraudulent fines, backdated notices, and intimidation tactics. Fewer people would have to stand alone against a system that was designed to wear them down. The neighborhood Facebook group became a resource for other HOA victims. People from across the state would post their stories, ask for advice, and share evidence. The group became a clearinghouse for reform, a place where people could connect with lawyers, auditors, and advocates who could help them fight back. I stayed active in the group, answering questions and pointing people toward the resources they needed. It was not a job, it was just something I did because I knew how hard it was to fight alone. The final closure came 5 years after Kathleen's sentencing. She completed her prison sentence and her probation, and she disappeared from public view. I heard through Devin that she had moved to Arizona and was living under a different name, working in retail and staying out of trouble. I did not look for her. I did not need to. The case was over, the reforms were in place, and the neighborhood was thriving. The roll of caution tape still hung in my garage, a reminder of the day it all started. Every time I saw it, I thought about the tow truck idling in the parking lot, the security guard hovering by the clubhouse door, Kathleen waving her laminated policy sheet like a weapon, and the moment I decided I was not going to back down. That moment changed everything, not just for me, but for the neighborhood, for the state, and for every homeowner who would come after me. The story was over, but the work was not. Reform was not a one-time event, it was a process. It required vigilance, participation, and the willingness to stand up when something felt wrong. It required people like Rachel, like Tina, like the new board members, and like the homeowners who kept showing up to meetings and asking questions. It required a community that refused to let fear and intimidation win. I stayed in my condo at Eagle Ridge Ridge. I kept working as a lineman, kept my dash cam running, and kept my evidence folder updated. I did not need it anymore, but I kept it as a reminder that accountability was possible, that transparency was achievable, and that one person asking questions could change the system. The neighborhood was better. The HOA was better. The laws were better. And every time I drove into the parking lot and saw the new cameras, the updated signage, and the homeowners gathering for a meeting, I knew it had been worth it. I appreciate you taking the time to listen.